Hi, my name is Lisa Samwick. I am passionate owner of the Trailing Apron. I love connecting people through food. I love connecting with people through food. I consider food as my love language, and I hope that it is your love language, and I hope that you enjoy connecting through food as well. So what is the Trailing Apron? So the Trailing Apron is a passion project of mine turned into a home-based business, and it started when I was in the Middle East. And now it's grown, and I've been to Turkey, Argentina, Mexico, and Jordan. So it's kind of traveled with me, hence the trailing. I'm considered a trailing spouse with the Foreign Service, but really I just love learning about the cultures that I've lived in through the food that they offer. And every country that we've been through and visited and lived in, we've actually lived in all these countries. So it's an absolute amazing, different experience to actually live in the country and immerse yourself in the food culture there. So what do? So my main core services are teaching nannies and housekeepers how to cook healthy American foods. This started in Jordan with a friend of mine, and it's just kind of grown, and it's always evolving. And the second service that I offer is having, I do cooking classes for both adults and children in my community, and I teach them the foods that they miss from home or that brings back a memory for them. So a lot of that is some foods from other countries that they've been to. Like, for example, in Argentina. So the Trailing Apron really blossomed in Argentina, and I was having a hard time finding my food that I love from the Middle East. And I just searched and searched, found it, created this amazing Middle Eastern cuisine and feast, and it just brought us right back to the Middle East. So I decided that I want others to feel that way as well. So teaching nannies how to create healthy American meals, diverse meals, and comfort meals from home. And so that's been in the works for the last 2 years. So I'm here to share my experience, and I want to hear about your experience through food. And let's start this journey together. So you can follow along on my journey through a lot of social media. So you can find it on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and of course, we'll be doing more videos like this for you guys to enjoy. So come with me, let's connect through food and speak the same language. We are going to start this video series of Back to the Basics. I know it sounds very simple. I've been telling a couple people nowadays, like, there's a whole generation out there that needs to kind of get back to the basics. And for me, I will show you the very first step. If you're going to start in your kitchen, or you're going back to your kitchen for COVID, or you're teaching your kids how to cook because they need to learn that life skill when they get out of the house. I know mine do. I have 3, and they all know these particular techniques and back to basic demos. So we're going to start out knives. Knives are super important, guys. So what we want to do is 3 things with knives. You want to make sure you have the right knife. You want to make sure your knife is sharpened, and you want to make sure how you hold your knife is going to be a way that is going to be safe and going to get the best cut for whatever you're cooking. So today I'm going to demo real quick on how to cut a basic tomato. So I've sharpened my knives. If you don't have a sharpener at home, go ahead and make sure you buy one. You don't need a fancy one. This is a great one. It's Kitchen IQ. You can get it on Amazon. I take this everywhere, even if for my clients, I take my own knife or my own knife sharpener. I don't know if they have one. Or just something simple like this that you can keep in your drawer as well, that you know. So I've sharpened my knives. I've also placed a mat underneath my cutting board. That's also going to give you some safety in your cutting. And what that allows is that you keep all your fingers intact. So I want to make sure that all your fingers are intact when you're done with this particular cutting technique. So one of the reasons that I like to teach this cutting technique in all my classes is because it's super important to have, if you want to be quick in the kitchen, and if you want to make nice cubes of, a lot of recipes ask for cubed tomatoes, cubed onions. I make a lot of pico de gallo, and I make a lot of tabbouleh. So I have been told that this is a life-changing demo. So what I want to do is just show you how to change your life by learning how to cut a tomato. So we're going to start with the tomato, and then if we have time, we're going to do an onion as well. But first, the tomato. So basically, essentially, let's say that I want to make a tabbouleh or a pico de gallo. We want some nice, even cuts, and this particular technique is going to give you those cuts. So what you like to start out with, make sure you have your knife in your hand. It's held properly. One of the things I teach people is not to hold your knife like this. I did take a knife cutting skills in Virginia, and this was the first thing they taught us. Do not hold your knife like this. Why? Because it could slip and you could cut your finger off. So I like to make sure that people know that this is not the correct way. Now, if you're comfortable this way, absolutely, go ahead and keep cutting that way. However, if you want to stay sturdy and safe, this is the recommended way. We can go more into knife and how you hold the knife. Second, with the knife, how you hold your vegetable. Fingers underneath. We don't want to cut your fingers. We want to make sure, again, that you keep them off. So we're going to start with, we're going to do medium cubes for pico de gallo. And what we'd like to do is we have like a nice round tomato. And we're going to kind of keep the tomato intact by cutting lines, vertical lines. So when your knife is super sharp, this is going to be so easy. If it's not sharp, it's going to be really hard. So you want to make sure your knife is sharp. I do not recommend attempting this with a dull knife. But now that our knives are sharp, we're going to go ahead and start cutting our vertical lines, and we're going to kind of cut each through the tomato to the stem of the tomato. But we don't want to cut through the tomato. Remember, we're going to keep this intact. And because we want medium-sized cubes, we're going to kind of just make sure that the vertical lines are spaced out evenly, not too thin. If you want diced, you'll want to cut the vertical lines smaller. So we've cut vertical lines. We're going to turn the tomato around, and then we're going to do that again. So it's almost like a tic-tac-toe, like a big tic-tac-toe with the tomato. So it's still staying intact, and we're just kind of turning it around just to kind of keep, if you see your tomato falling apart, that's normal. This is going to take a lot of practice. Then we're going to take our tomato on the side, and then we're going to cut down. Again, just kind of holding the tomato together, and some pieces are going to fall out, and that's fine. This is going to take a lot of practice. And then we're just going to slice down. So here you get nice, even cubes of tomato for your pico de gallo. Now, it's not going to be perfect, and you're going to have a lot of tomato left over. You can either go back through the vertical lines and continue down, so that way you can cut more of the tomato, or you can kind of take your tomato on the side as well. So there, you can take your tomato and chop that way, and cut your own even cubes. But that's kind of the theory of cutting a tomato. You can discard this. There's not a lot of juice running around, and they're kind of nice, pretty cuts. So that's cutting a tomato. And next, we can do an onion. So what I'm going to do is do an onion. So again, this is made for tabbouleh and guacamole. I use a lot of these two vegetables, and you'll find probably a lot of recipes that call for the same thing. So real quick, the theory about the onion is what we want to do is we want to take the root and the stem. We want to cut from root to stem, and that'll give us a nice flat surface to cut. It'll also keep it from releasing some of the chemicals that make us cry. So in theory, the root holds most of that chemical. Keeping that intact will also decrease your tears. Now, don't quote me on that. If you still cry, that's fine. But now we've cut from root to stem. And it's the same theory with the tomato. We want to go ahead and keep the root intact. So we want to just cut vertical, then we want to just cut a little piece of that stem off, because that's kind of the not so great part, and we don't want any of that in our recipe. And now we have kind of a position where it's flat. We can actually do a couple different cuts here. We can do rainbow cuts for nice pretty salads. That'll give you kind of like the nice rainbow cut. Or we can also do very nice cubes, and it's going to be the same theory with the tomatoes. We're going to cut vertical lines into our onion to the root, not cutting through the root. We want to just go right to the root. Again, the bigger the spaced out vertical lines cuts that you have, the bigger it's going to be. Now we're going to take our onion, and we're also going to kind of do a horizontal or another cut here to the root. So it's still intact, and then we're going to come down and we're going to cut down. Just being very careful. Again, the closer the cuts, the finer chop you're going to get. And then you can take the end and chop that way. And then you still have the root intact, and you have nice even cuts for pico de gallo or tabbouleh. So this will just look really pretty in your salad. So that's it. So I call this the life-changing cutting technique. It's going to take some practice. I always say don't hurt yourself. Always be comfortable with whatever you're doing, and just practice, practice, practice. So this is going to be the first step in our demo series, and hopefully our next series will be back to basics with spices, and we're going to talk about how to have any type of cuisine at any time, and also just how to use some of your favorite kitchen tools and some of my favorite kitchen tools that I use that you must have. So thank you again for joining me. I hope that you cut tomatoes happily, and I hope that it's as life-changing for you as it was for me. Thank you.